Okay, today is the 12th day of Tammuz, 11th day of Tammuz, Yud Aleph, and the 7th of July.
So you're tomorrow?
What?
What's your yurtzeit?
Kaf Gimel.
Oh, Kaf Gimel. So you
Have time. Shabbos, yeah, it won't be here.
Next 20 years.
Yeah, it won't be Shabbos for 20 years. That's how it works.
Comes up there.
Ah, that's all. Tough. Hey, okay. So yesterday we began to see this very, very long issue of what does it mean that the Sefirot are godly, they're divine. So the first parable he gave us is that they're like we're on page 98. Chapter 4 of Hamanos Alokus in Derech Mitzvosecha. So the first parable was that it's like a tool in the hand of an artisan, but it's not like a tool. On the one hand, it's like a tool. On the other hand, it's not like a tool. Now he'll do this in length.
What is again
The Sefirot,
the Sefirot,
the divine emanations, they're divine, meaning that they're godly, but they're not God, because we said it's an extension. So what do we mean by that? So
it's something like again and again.
Yeah.
Like he becomes one with his kli.
So it's a beautiful example. I didn't think of that one. When someone is very, very knowledgeable in classical music, they can hear the arrangement. They can hear the particular recording and tell you who the first violinist was. How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense, because how could you know? I mean, it's the same sheet music. Everything's the same. So how can you?
It's you can always in jazz. That first blow, if you're good,
You can tell.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? It means that the person is in the action. But when you look at a table, you can't.
You can't tell the maker.
Right. So there's a story about the Maggid of Mezrich that he once said that the watchmaker who made a watch was blind in one eye. How can you tell?
When you're looking at that watch.
Looking at the watch, you could tell that it was blind in one eye. So people say, how can you know? What? God. So he explained. So there he explained. They don't always explain. Like you just said, in music, maybe there's something you can, I don't know. If you're not an expert, you can't tell. But he said that when they wind the springs, they have to close one eye, and they put monocle, whatever it's called. It's an eyepiece. It's an eyepiece they put in one eye, and they look like this, and then they do it. It says, because this guy was blind in one eye, so look at this, there's so much in this. So he says he didn't have to close his other eye. This eye was blind, he didn't have to close it. So when you don't close it, you don't use as much force when you're winding, because all those types of muscles, they're all connected. There's a system in alternative medicine. Yeah. When you squeeze the eyes, you squeeze all the sphincter muscles. It's called the Paula method. It's a big deal. It's like people who lose their ability to control they don't have continence. They can't control their bladder, they can't control their rectum. So these are exercises that you actually do. And what she discovered was that all the sphincters are connected. And they actually have like, there's like a beat in the body itself that opens and closes everything together. And it has to do with the front sphincters and the back sphincters, and you do this through the eyes. Anyway, that's a side story. So he could tell that the springs weren't wound as tight as they usually are. I don't even know what the springs look like, because for me a spring is like something. But that's how they used to make watches. So he could look at it, he could say, this guy, he was blind. Okay. So maybe, yeah. So all this is coming to say that when we say that they're divinity, the first thing that we want to say is that you can tell God from them. It's not like another example would be, this is also a general introduction to everything we've been saying that I didn't say until now. And I realized when I looked over it this morning that I should have said it a long time ago. In Chassidus, we assume that everything in the end is coming from Hashem, of course. But even though matter and energy are like different, they really come from the same source. It's like Einstein's E equals mc squared. That energy is mass, that they're interchangeable. Now, Einstein wanted to say something entirely different. That wasn't his interest at all, but that's what people understood from it, and it's a good thing to understand. Because in the end, all the energy that we have is untraceable. That's the point. The point is that when I look at light from light's not a good example. When I look at the electrons and the protons and neutrons that make up this table, I can't tell where they came from. There's no way I can trace them. I don't know. So what does that mean? That they're untraceable. That matter to me looks like it didn't come from it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know its origin. I can't trace it back. I can't go backwards and figure out where it came from.
It's static completely.
It's like it came out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's called the yesh ma'ayin.
Yes.
But energy is not that way. The idea about energy is that energy somehow leaves a trace. And that you can tell that this energy came from somewhere. So the example would be that we said there's light and it's coming from some star. And just by looking at the light itself, I can tell you which star it came from. It's very different. There's a way to trace it. Now, not everything is traceable, granted. In fact, there's levels of energy that are untraceable also. But the point here is that everything that I would call a sefirah, it's traceable. I can see where it came from. I can see how Hashem did it. Okay? So it's a very important point that Sefirot are like a way of looking at the energy transfers in the world and saying, here, I can see that Hashem did this. This I can see. And in other things, it's not so clear. It's not so clear where it came from. Meaning, in other words, in the Sefirot, what I mean by that they're divine is that things that come out of the Sefirot, there's like some divine trace in them. You can tell. In the same way, if I would have a computer make the first blow, like in a jazz piece, you wouldn't be able to tell who it was, because there's no telltale sign. There's no agent behind it. But when there's an agent, you can tell. That's part of the idea about this concept, that everything in the end is back to energy, and there's energy that is traceable and energy that isn't traceable. Matter is untraceable. Matter you just don't know. That's a feature of matter, that matter doesn't know where it came from. You can't trace it back. Now, you could trace it back a little bit, because you know that the tree, but then eventually you lose it, because you're not really tracing the matter, you're sort of tracing the sequence of events. It's not really the matter itself. Now, we know how to trace things because we add to them like some marker. We add some additional neutron, or we add
to the energy.
No, with matter. Like when we do a CT scan, right? So we add iodine,
Yes.
and that allows us to trace. Or we even we add things that have an extra something. We know how to trace matter, but it's artificial. In any case. כלומר, שהחוכמה הזאת היא חוכמתו ממש שבה מתחכם, וכן החסד הוא כוח חסדו ממש שבו מתחסד. ואף על פי שבעצמותו לה מכל אינון מידות יהיו כלל, even though he himself is none of these sefirot, he's none of these measurements, these powers of measuring. הנה זו באמת, so we're at the end of Dalet. What's that? Hey already? No, it was here before. כן, כן, הנה זהו, כן. הנה זהו באמת עניין צמצום שצמצם והסתיר אורו הפשוט עד שיתראה ממנו דמיון כוחות אלו, כוח ההתחכמות וכוח ההבנה וכוח הידיעה שנקראים כלים דחב"ד האצילות. So, for now, what he's saying is that Hashem concealed himself. He concealed his simple, he called it simple revelation, a simple light, until you could see from him faculties, powers, like wisdom and understanding and knowledge. And they are what we call the vessels of Chabad, of Atzilus. The vessels in Atzilus are basically the Sefirot in Atzilus. וכן הדרך זה במידת מהות, כוח ההתחסדות, כוח גבורה, וכולי נקרא חגת. And then you have the other Sefirot, they're all the same way. כנ"ל, למשל, צמצום, שכוח, השכלת הרב, אך שהיא בדרך נפלאה יותר. He says, now we can go to another example. The example of a teacher teaching a student, or a father teaching a son. And when he's teaching him, he's limiting his it's as if he doesn't understand so much. He explains something very small, so that the child can understand it. So that's called contraction. So what do you say about this contraction? You say that he is in what he's explaining, but only a small part of him, as it were. And that's another example of this. But the most important thing to understand is that they are not autonomous. The Sefirot are not autonomous. They don't do whatever they want. That's, by the way, how they're different from a malach, from an angel. Rather, he is acting through them. It's a garment that he's wearing while he's doing something. Not to understand that the sphere can do whatever it wants.
Nor can the wow.
Can.
It can? I'm sorry, you said...
Yes, it can.